The glittering facade of modern social media often masks a far more turbulent reality, where the boundary between public entertainment and private agony becomes dangerously blurred. In the contemporary digital landscape, millions of viewers flock to platforms like TikTok and Instagram to catch a glimpse of lifestyles that appear flawlessly curated, filled with affluent neighborhoods, pristine homes, and families that seem to possess an almost otherworldly perfection. For years, the sprawling suburban landscapes of Utah have served as the backdrop for a specific genre of content creation that blends traditional values with high-stakes digital influencer culture. Audiences became deeply invested in the lives of these charismatic creators, watching them navigate the complexities of marriage, parenting, and personal growth under the warm glow of smartphone screens and professional lighting equipment. The fascination with these individuals was built on a sense of aspirational relatability, where regular people could envision themselves achieving the same levels of fame, fortune, and domestic bliss. However, behind the carefully edited video transitions, the meticulously synchronized dance routines, and the endless streams of product endorsements, a much darker and more chaotic narrative was quietly unfolding. What began as an engaging chronicling of everyday life gradually transformed into a high-octane drama that would eventually capture the attention of law enforcement, legal professionals, and millions of stunned onlookers across the globe. To truly understand how this situation escalated into a state of perpetual crisis, one must look at the immense pressure cooker environment of the modern influencer industry, particularly within tight-knit communities where reputation and public image are treated as paramount currencies. In these spaces, personal relationships are not merely private bonds, they are also the primary engine driving massive commercial enterprises and digital brands. Every public interaction, every shared milestone, and every hint of domestic harmony translates directly into engagement metrics, brand partnerships, and financial stability. When a relationship of this magnitude begins to fracture, the stakes are incomparably higher than they would be for an average couple, as the breakdown threatens not just emotional well-being but entire livelihoods and public legacies. The insatiable appetite of the internet community means that creators are constantly incentivized to share more, push boundaries, and allow cameras into the most intimate corners of their homes. This absolute erosion of privacy creates an environment where personal grievances are amplified 1,000-fold by the commentary of millions of strangers, each offering opinions, taking sides, and fueling an already volatile fire. As the cracks in the foundation of this high-profile partnership deepened, the digital world watched in real time, completely unaware that the real-world consequences would soon spill out of the digital sphere and into the somber corridors of the judicial system. If you want to stay informed on how this dramatic saga unfolds and receive deep dives into the realities behind internet fame, please take a brief moment to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. The specific turning point that brought this hidden turmoil into the stark light of day involves a series of escalating confrontations that ultimately required the intervention of emergency services and local law enforcement agencies. Over the course of several years, what the public assumed to be minor relationship hurdles grew into a pattern of severe domestic instability, characterized by intense arguments and allegations of physical altercations that shocked even the most cynical observers of internet culture. Neighbors and community members in the quiet, orderly streets of Utah found themselves witnessing scenes that contrasted sharply with the peaceful image the region typically projects. Police vehicles arriving at upscale residences became an increasingly frequent occurrence, signaling to the outside world that something was profoundly amiss within this prominent household. Each subsequent police investigation chipped away at the carefully constructed image of domestic harmony, leaving behind a trail of official reports, legal filings, and growing public bewilderment. The transition from digital royalty to subjects of criminal investigations was swift and unforgiving, serving as a stark reminder of how quickly an idealized life can unravel when subjected to the intense pressures of personal conflict and public scrutiny. Despite numerous attempts to resolve their differences away from the prying eyes of the media, the former couple found themselves locked in an increasingly bitter cycle of recrimination and hostility, with each party presenting vastly different versions of reality to both the authorities and their respective online followers. As spring arrived, the legal battles reached a critical crescendo within the family court system, where a judge was tasked with untangling the deeply compromised co-parenting dynamic of the estranged couple. The central focus of these intense legal proceedings was the welfare of their young son, a toddler whose entire life had been lived under the shadow of his parents, compounding legal woes and highly publicized disputes. Recognizing the severe volatility of the situation, and taking into account the history of domestic disturbances, the court was forced to implement drastic measures to ensure the child's safety and emotional well-being. In a move that sent shockwaves through the influencer community, sole physical custody of the 2-year-old boy was temporarily stripped from his mother and awarded to his father. Following a series of alarming allegations regarding physical outbursts and a lack of emotional stability. This monumental shift in the structure marked a devastating blow for the high-profile mother, who had built a substantial portion of her online identity around her role as a dedicated and loving parent. The court's decision underscored the gravity of the allegations, making it abundantly clear that the judicial system would prioritize the protection of the minor child over any considerations of celebrity status or public relations management. For a prominent figure accustomed to controlling her own narrative through edited video clips and selective social media updates, the absolute authority of the courtroom presented a harsh and unyielding reality that could not be bypassed with a clever caption or a charismatic explanation. In the weeks that followed this initial custody ruling, the legal restrictions placed upon the mother became even more stringent, reflecting the court's ongoing concerns regarding her emotional state and potential for volatile behavior. While she was eventually granted the right to see her youngest son, these interactions were heavily restricted by the state, mandated to take place only under strict supervision to guarantee that no further incidents would occur. The court allocated a mere 6 hours of visitation per week, a heartbreakingly brief window of time for a mother who was accustomed to living full-time with her child, further emphasizing the profound depth of the legal divide that had opened between the two former partners. Furthermore, during a highly charged courtroom appearance at the end of April, the presiding judge grew visibly exasperated with the ongoing hostility between the parties and issued a strict mutual protective order. Under the terms of this legal directive, both individuals were ordered to remain a minimum of 100 feet away from each other at all times, effectively banning any direct contact or proximity during child exchanges. The judge delivered a stern and unambiguous warning to the parents, stating that they absolutely had to figure out how to function as civilized co-parents and rise above their personal animosities for the sake of their innocent son. This order set the stage for an incredibly tense and complex operational framework, where even the simplest logistical tasks of picking up and dropping off a toddler would require military-grade precision and a complete absence of direct communication. The implementation of the mutual 100-foot protective order marked the beginning of a Cold War between the two social media personalities, transforming the basic obligations of shared parenting into a logistical minefield managed under the watchful eye of local authorities. For individuals whose lives had previously been characterized by complete freedom of movement and the fluid boundaries of digital creators, the rigid constraints of a court-mandated perimeter introduced an oppressive level of structure. Every drop-off and pickup of their 2-year-old son ever required careful planning and absolute adherence to the spatial boundaries dictated by the judiciary. The physical distance between them became a literal manifestation of the profound emotional and psychological divide that had formed over years of escalating domestic conflict. While the court had intended for this protective barrier to foster peace and de-escalate the lingering hostility, it instead created a highly combustible environment where both parties remained hyper-vigilant, analyzing every action, choice, and minor delay for potential legal leverage. The quiet town of Bluffdale, Utah, with its orderly neighborhoods and picturesque landscapes, became the unexpected stage for this continuous game of high-stakes legal chess. As the former couple attempted to navigate the strict terms of their co-parenting arrangement, without ever looking each other in the eye or standing within the same room, the delicate peace established by the courtroom directives was abruptly shattered when the 33-year-old father, Dakota Mortensen, placed a direct phone call to the Bluffdale Police Department, initiating a sequence of events that would rapidly reignite the public controversy surrounding their private lives. Seeking absolute clarity regarding the precise execution of the custody arrangement, Mortensen approached the authorities not with an official allegation of violence, but with a series of highly specific inquiries concerning the legal boundaries of their mutual protective order. With the stakes surrounding his sole custody of young Ever incredibly high, Mortensen wanted to determine exactly who was legally permitted to assist with the physical transportation, drop-offs, and pickups of the toddler. In the complex world of high-conflict custody disputes, the introduction of third-party intermediaries, such as family members, friends, or hired assistants, can frequently become a point of severe contention, and Mortensen sought to establish whether the involvement of outside individuals constituted an explicit violation of the judge's standing orders. Furthermore, the TikTok creator expressed deep concern regarding recent interactions and logistical maneuvers, explicitly asking the police department to evaluate whether the mother, Taylor Frankie Paul, had technically crossed the legal line and violated the active protective order during their recent scheduling cycles. The response from the Bluffdale Police Department was swift and systematic, reflecting the standard operating procedures required when dealing with potential violations of court-ordered domestic protections. Recognizing the highly sensitive nature of the case and the prominent public standing of the individuals involved, the responding officers immediately initiated a formal inquiry to gather all necessary perspectives. Following their detailed conversation with Mortensen, authorities reached out directly to the 32-year-old mother to officially collect her formal statement regarding the incident in question. This process of investigative due diligence required Paul to recount her version of the logistical exchange, providing context to her movements and actions during the timeframe specified by her former partner. Once both statements were successfully documented and compiled into an official police report, the local department did not make an immediate determination regarding guilt or innocence. Instead, following established legal protocol, they officially forwarded the entire case file to the district attorney's office. It is within this higher judicial domain that the ultimate authority resides, leaving it entirely up to the district attorney to meticulously review the evidence, analyze the specific wording of the protective order, and decide whether a formal criminal violation had actually occurred. As news of the police involvement began to leak into the mainstream media, the industrial machinery of celebrity journalism immediately went into overdrive, seeking validation and commentary from all parties connected to the developing situation. Prominent national entertainment outlets, including Page Six and Us Weekly, initiated widespread inquiries, aggressively reaching out to the official public relations representatives of both Paul and Mortensen, as well as submitting formal information requests to the Bluffdale Police Department and the Regional District Attorney's Office. The sudden influx of media scrutiny highlighted the insatiable public appetite for updates on the fractured relationship, placing immense pressure on the institutions tasked with managing the case. Despite the intense media clamor and the brewing storm of online speculation, a reputable source with intimate first-hand knowledge of the matter came forward to provide crucial context to the publication, revealing that Taylor and Dakota had not actually seen, encountered, or spoken to one another in any capacity since the initial protective orders were officially handed down by the family court judge. This vital piece of information suggested that while the legal battle was escalating rapidly through administrative and police channels, the physical boundary established by the court was still being strictly maintained by both parties in the real world. The tension took an even more volatile turn when Taylor Frankie Paul, unable to contain her mounting frustration within the confines of the legal system, chose to take the matter directly to her massive social media audience. In a scathing, emotionally charged Instagram story that was posted and subsequently deleted within a short time frame, the prominent influencer launched a direct verbal assault against her ex-partner without explicitly using his name, though the target of her ire was unmistakable to anyone following the case. Expressing an overwhelming sense of exasperation, she informed her million followers that the police had been called on her yet again that very week, questioning the astronomical odds of such an occurrence happening repeatedly. In her raw digital outburst, which was quickly captured and archived by media outlets like TMZ, Paul fiercely clarified that these continuous encounters with law enforcement were not the result of random citizens or concerned observers monitoring her public life. Rather, she explicitly pointed the finger at one specific singular individual, labeling the ongoing scrutiny and frequent police reports as completely obsessive. The mother of three made it abundantly clear that she viewed her ex-boyfriend's administrative inquiries not as legitimate safety concerns, but as a calculated campaign of psychological harassment intended to destabilize her life and ruin her public reputation. This sudden and public explosion of animosity provided a vivid window into the deep-seated trauma and mutual distrust that had me to define their relationship since its inception back in 2022. What had once started as a highly publicized romance filled with shared digital content, mutual career support, and the joyous arrival of their son Ever had degenerated into a bitter, multi-year saga characterized by severe domestic instability and repeated interventions by various law enforcement agencies. The public, which had once cheered for their partnership, was now forced to witness the toxic aftermath of a relationship that had completely collapsed under the weight of personal volatility and the unrelenting pressures of internet fame. The current dispute over pickup logistics and protective order boundaries was not an isolated incident, but rather the latest chapter in a long, well-documented history of domestic altercations that had repeatedly drawn the attention of local police departments. Each party had accumulated a list of grievances, and as the legal framework surrounding their shared child grew tighter and more restrictive, the opportunities for friction only multiplied, ensuring that even the most routine aspects of their daily lives remained completely overshadowed by the threat of impending legal warfare and potential criminal charges. To truly appreciate the profound gravity of this ongoing domestic crisis, one must look closely at the complex paths that brought both individuals to this point and the deeper emotional toll this conflict has extracted from everyone involved. Long before her relationship with Dakota Mortensen began making headlines for all the wrong reasons, Taylor Frankie Paul was already a monumental and highly controversial figure within the global social media landscape. As one of the foundational creators behind the viral phenomenon surrounding affluent families in Utah, she had spent years building an incredibly lucrative digital empire based on an image of suburban perfection, traditional domesticity, and youthful charm. Millions of dedicated followers watched her every move, tracking her journey through marriage, the upbringing of her two older children, Indy and Ocean, whom she shares with her former husband Tate Paul, and her eventual transition into single motherhood. Her life seemed to embody a specific kind of modern dream, where personal charisma could be converted into immense cultural influence and substantial financial security. Yet beneath that polished surface, a series of profound personal fractures was quietly widening, culminating in a highly publicized divorce and a subsequent period of extreme personal reinvention that fascinated and polarized the internet community in equal measure. When Dakota Mortensen entered her life in 2022, the relationship was initially presented to the public as a fresh start and a beautiful opportunity for mutual healing and shared happiness. Mortensen, a charismatic creator who would later appear on reality television projects like the Unwell Winter Games, quickly became an integral part of Paul's digital brand, stepping into the role of a supportive partner and a dedicated father figure to her older children. The subsequent birth of their son, Ever, now 2 years old, was celebrated by millions of fans as the ultimate symbol of their commitment and the beginning of a joyous new chapter for the blended family. However, the intense spotlight of internet fame, combined with deep-seated personal issues and an apparent lack of healthy communication strategies, quickly turned their romance into an incredibly volatile environment. Over the next 2 years, the couple became caught in a destructive cycle of public adoration and private hostility, with multiple domestic altercations requiring the direct intervention of local law enforcement. The very platforms that had brought them together and fueled their careers became a digital battleground where personal grievances were aired in real time, creating an environment where a private resolution became completely impossible as millions of spectators continuously weighed in on their private pain. The current state of affairs reflects the absolute exhaustion of two individuals who have spent years living in a state of perpetual legal and emotional combat. In the wake of the recent police investigation regarding the potential protective order violation, official representatives from the Bluffdale Police Department have sought to de-escalate public panic by clarifying that there is currently no active criminal case officially open against either party. The matter rests quietly in the hands of the District Attorney's Office, serving as a silent administrative sword of Damocles hanging over the heads of both parents as they attempt to go about their daily routines. For Mortensen, his public statements have shifted entirely toward a narrative of stability, protection, and long-term planning for his young son. He has repeatedly emphasized to the media that his primary focus is no longer on the dramatic conflicts of the past, but rather on ensuring that Ever is raised in a healthy, predictable, and tranquil environment far removed from the volatility that defined his parents' romance. This public stance positions him as a protective guardian trying to navigate a broken system. Though his frequent utilization of administrative and legal channels to monitor his former partner ensures that the underlying tension between them remains at an all-time high. For Taylor Frankie Paul, the emotional consequences of this multi-year legal war have manifested as a profound sense of psychological numbness and overwhelming isolation, which she has recently begun to share with her audience in a much more vulnerable and subdued manner. Responding to a deeply relatable message from a fan who expressed feeling completely stuck in an identical high-conflict custody battle, Paul offered a rare glimpse into her current mental state, moving away from her typical defensive posture. She admitted openly to her followers that she no longer knows what to say to provide comfort, other than acknowledging that she is right there in the trenches, alongside so many other women facing similar systemic nightmares. Reflecting on the immense psychological toll of the past few years, she questioned exactly when her nervous system had permanently switched from active panic to absolute exhaustion, revealing a heartbreaking detail that she has found herself completely unable to cry lately, a symptom she described as entirely uncharacteristic for her. This emotional paralysis, as she accurately noted to her audience, represents a severe form of emotional overwhelm where the mind simply shuts down as a survival mechanism to protect itself from further trauma and the unending pressure of public judgment. This tragic saga serves as a definitive cautionary tale regarding the immense dangers of modern internet celebrity, where the pursuit of digital engagement can completely erode the foundational structures of a healthy private life. The reality behind the screens is not a glamorous television production with scripted outcomes and safety nets. It is a real-world tragedy involving an innocent 2-year-old child whose parents must now figure out how to navigate the next 16 years of his life through the cold, unyielding mechanisms of mutual 100-foot protective orders and supervised visitations. The absolute collapse of their relationship highlights the devastating truth that public image cannot save a family from internal decay, and that the applause of millions of strangers is an entirely worthless currency when a human being is facing the bleak reality of a family courtroom. As the district attorney's office continues its quiet review of